Hey, thanks for watching my video. If you like it, hit the subscribe button. We're going to remove the rear wheel of a 2014 VFR Deluxe. First, we need to remove the Two Brothers exhaust. I'm using a exhaust spring puller. Exhaust spring pullers usually come if you buy a decent brand of exhaust, like Two Brothers, Turbignani. Next, I'm going to take a 12mm wrench and a socket, and I'm going to remove the bolt that holds the exhaust onto the foot peg. So this is easy enough. Then we're just going to slide that bolt out, throw it on the ground, and pull our exhaust off. So now that we got the exhaust out of the way, we want to make sure that the bike is in gear, and then we're going to loosen these 5 lug nuts. It's just like removing the lug nuts on your car. So it's a 19mm, and just go around and loosen each one of them. I do it in a star pattern, so I'm hitting every other lug nut just the same way that you would do it to install the lug nuts. You do every other first. So once we get the lugs off, we're just going to toss them on the floor out of the way. So the main reason I'm doing this video is just to show you the basics of what your local shop mechanic does when he works on your bike, in case you have any questions, or if you're going to get some tire tools and stuff and do the tires yourself. You know, it just gives you a kind of heads up of what's in store ahead of you. So with the tire off the bike, I'm taking a Schrader valve removal tool, and I'm going to pull the cap off of the valve. I've already installed the 90-degree angle valve stems on this bike, and I take the Schrader valve tool and I remove the core out of the inside of that valve, and as the air releases from that tire, you can actually watch the tire get shorter in this video. I thought that was kind of cool that you could see it. The machine I'm using is a Derek Weaver tire machine. It is the exact same machine as a Coates baseline. I have about $2,000 in my machine. A Coates baseline is about $5,000. I don't see any benefit in buying a Coates baseline over the Derek Weaver machine, since they are exactly the same. So, you know, if you're in the market to get yourself a decent tire machine and you want the quality of a Coates tire machine, this Derek Weaver is exactly the same machine. The parts are all interchangeable. When I get the plastic clamps, they're the same for this machine as they are for the Coates baseline. The duck bill, the plastic duck bill is the same. Everything's the same. So once I've got the bead broken on both sides, I go ahead and I hit the middle pedal, and the clamp will slide across the tire and grab the wheel. Sometimes you do have to push the wheel down so it'll grab that lip on the rim and clamp it. Again, if you notice as I'm spinning it, each one of my clamps are plastic. They're like a nylon, a black nylon plastic, and they will not scratch the wheel. And my duck bill that's on the end of that arm that I just put on the wheel, that is a nylon duck bill, and it will not scratch the wheel. So the only place that can scratch the wheel is going to be that tire iron, and I'm very careful when I use my tire iron not to touch anything, any paint on the wheel. I try to keep it on the duck bill, just so your wheel doesn't get scratched. This is my wheel. I'm probably not as picky as you, because I've seen some really terrible wheels come through my shop. And then what I just put on the tire iron is some stuff called slip and seal. This stuff's pretty cool. It's better than a soap. So it goes on and it's very slimy when it's on, when I just put it on the bead or whatever. And then after about a day it dries and it seals the tire to the wheel. So that's kind of a dual benefit. If you're doing a lot of tires like I am, it's a good idea to use stuff like that. A lot of these Harley guys will come in, and I don't know if you can zoom in and see the gunk that's on this wheel, but partially it's the tire lube, and some of it is the tire itself just from being on the wheel. I've only had this tire on the bike for about 2,000 miles. That was a Continental Road Attack. I got about 2,000 miles out of it riding 2-up in the mountains. So it's time for it to come off. We're going to put PR5s on it. I'm expecting to get about the same 2,000 miles out of the PR5, maybe a little bit less, depending on how aggressive I ride. But when you pull your tire off and you look at the bead, if there is a black line around the bead, it's a great idea to go ahead and take some 4/40 steel wool and scrub your bead down and get the majority of that black off of the wheel. I've had people come in complaining that they had their tires done and they were leaking about 10 psi a week, and nobody could seem to find where the air was leaking out of. So when I pulled the tire off the wheel and I showed them all this crap that builds up on the wheel, then I could kind of explain where their air is going. And I just take some steel wool and polish up their wheel and put their tire back on, and they never go to the original place again that didn't clean their wheel. They always seem to come back to me. So I'm not a business, I'm just a rider taking care of other riders. And I believe that if you take care of people, if you take care of other riders, they're always going to take care of you. And I've had really good luck. I pretty much only change motorcycle tires in my shop. I don't do a whole lot of other maintenance for people. You know, if I see their brakes are bad and I can help them, if their brake fluid's the wrong color, yeah, I might flush their brake system for them. But typically I try to keep it just to tires. So my wheel, the bead of my wheel is cleaned up pretty good. So these are PR5s. I bought a Ducati Monster a couple months ago, and the seller had just put on a brand new set of Michelin PR5s. And when I saw the tires, I just thought to myself, what a waste putting sport touring tires on a Monster. You know, but each to its own. I took it out for a ride. The bike really felt like crap going through the mountains, so I went ahead and put a set of Michelin RS on it, and the Ducati rides a lot better. So now I have these almost new PR5s, and I'm pointing at that barcode there. So with Michelin's, the rumor is if you have a barcode, you're supposed to line up the barcode with the valve stem, just like you would line the dot up with the valve stem. Well, I'm here to tell you that it's pretty much a wives' tale, that dot on the tire. There's a good write-up on the TireRack.com website that explains that dot. So go read it and get a better understanding. But you do not have to line up the dot with the valve stem. That's just a foolish tale. I do it just so people don't flame me. People who don't know any better don't flame me for not lining up the dot. You do whatever you want to do. You know, it's your tires. So now we got the tire seated on the wheel. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to seat the bead. And as I'm airing it up, you're going to hear two pops. You'll hear a pop where the bead seals on on one side, and then shortly after that it'll pop on the other. This tire itself took about 27 psi to seat the bead. And always, whenever you're replacing a tire, go ahead and spend that extra 10 cents and put a new Schrader valve in. It's crazy to reuse a Schrader valve. If you don't have extras laying around, there's always eBay. I want to say I paid probably $10 for 100 of them on eBay. It's just worth it. You know, the life you save might be your own. So since this is a VFR, and most 180 55/17 rear tires take 42 psi, so the VFR, every VFR that I've owned has had a 180 on the back, including my fourth generation VFRs. I got rid of that 170 rear wheel, that 5-inch rear wheel, and replaced it with a VFR 800 rear wheel, and I run the 42 psi in the rear, the 36 psi in the front. Yes, you can second guess Honda and put whatever psi you like in the tire, but all you're doing is wearing out the tire a little bit faster. So make sure once you've aired it up to your 42 psi, make sure to go ahead and put a valve cap on that valve stem. It's not a good idea to ride around without a valve cap. So this is my old Snap-on computer balancer. I've had this, I don't know, I've had it a long time. I've even sent it back to Snap-on back when they were working on these, and had it recalibrated and kind of rebuilt. They cleaned it up, made it look like brand new. I did that about 10 years ago, maybe 10, 12 years ago. And I'm lucky enough that I do have the Snap-on adapter for VFR wheels. Back when I bought this Snap-on balancer, it was rare to even see a BMW on the road, much less get one in the shop. So I never went out and bought the BMW cones for this balancer, which was probably a mistake on my part, because I do a lot of BMWs at this point of the game, BMW and Ducati. So that's why I have my other Derek Weaver balancer. So here you see me adjusting it. With this balancer, it's kind of basic. So I adjust it to a 17-inch wheel. I don't set the offset, and I set it to static balance. That's what the middle one is. Instead of doing rim width, I just set it to static, and it'll just do a regular static balance. So it's asking for 1 1/4 ounce. I already have 1 ounce on it, or I have 1 1/4 ounce on it. So if I'm lucky, I can take the 1 1/4 ounce off, and it'll ask me for a 1/2 ounce or something somewhere else. But I wasn't lucky this time, and where it landed, it's going to ask me for 1.5 ounces. And what I've learned in the 40 years that I've been mounting and balancing motorcycle tires is usually the wheel is what's out of balance. It's not the tire that's out of balance. Typically it's the wheel. So as you can see on this wheel, there's already tape. So we know that that's going to be a light spot in the wheel. And like I said, a lot of times I'll also take the wheel and I'll balance it without the tire, and then next time I balance it with the tire on it, it's only going to take maybe a 1/4 ounce. But this one's going to take 1.5 ounces, and you can see the computer balancer, the wheel is spinning on the computer balancer, so the heavy spot is working its way to the bottom, just like it would if you were static balancing it on your balancer, if you have like a Mark Parnes or something like that. Static balancer. Personally, I think a static balancer, for as many tires that I do, it's just too time consuming to balance a wheel with a static balancer, when for a few dollars you can buy a computer balancer and balance the wheel in minutes. So I cleaned off the tape where the old weights were, and I just stuck 1.5 ounces to the wheel. So now when I spin it again, it's going to go right to 0. I love this balancer. I couldn't even begin to guess how many tires I've balanced with that old snap-on balancer. So once we're balanced up, I'm going to take my wheel and I'm going to stick it back on the bike, and you're going to mount the wheel to the lugs, just like you would do it to the hub of your car. You're just going to line up the lug nuts to the holes in the wheel and then slide the wheel on. I love the VFR setup. It's almost as easy to do VFR rear wheels as it is to do a Ducati rear wheel. I wish on the 2014 VFR, I wish they would have done a better job of getting the exhaust out of the way. Maybe like they did with the crappy 6th generation VFR, put the exhaust up underneath the seat. That would have been kind of a cool feature. But I guess because the 6th generation sucks so bad, they didn't want people to think that the 8th generation was following in its footsteps. So now that I've got all 5 lugs on, I set my torque wrench, but my first time around, I'm only going to tighten the lugs. I'm not going to go all the way to the torque setting. So I just want to tighten all the lugs and make sure that the wheel is seated on the hub tightly the way it should. And then once I'm at the last one, then I'm going to go ahead and click the torque wrench, and that's going to guarantee that I have my full torque on all 5 of these lugs. And then once I've done all 5 in a star pattern, then I'm going to go around each one by one. So right there, now we've got the rear wheel on. Easy enough, right? So now let's slide our can on. This is the Two Brothers aluminum. This pipe was actually on the bike when I bought it. Personally, if I would have bought the bike new, I probably would have put a carbon fiber or a titanium can on this bike. Just I think carbon fiber and titanium look better than aluminum. To me, aluminum looks cheap, like those Delcovic exhaust pipes. They just look generic and cheap, like you ran out to eBay and bought the cheapest exhaust pipe you could possibly find for your VFR. So the first thing I did was I put the 12 millimeter bolt through and lined up the little strap, and I put the nut in the washer on and just got that nut finger tight. And now I'm going to do the easy spring on the outside first and hook it into place. And then the back spring's a little bit more difficult to get on. And again, I'm pretty sure the spring positioning is because the luggage. With the non-deluxe version, the pipe sits a little bit different on the bike. But I'm happy with my deluxe version. I would much rather have the deluxe than the base version. So once I'm done, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tighten down that 12 millimeter bolt and nut, and my exhaust is in place. And then this is what my 8th gen VFR looks like. I really love this bike. We rode it through the mountains today, had a lot of fun. So I hope this video helps you out, and thanks for watching.